full theory. That tells us what to do. Problems, all that kind of difficulty. But now we have a clear correspondence between theory and criminal justice policy in the context of arrest and what police are supposed to do. Are there any questions? Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. If you're not familiar with the theory, hopefully I explained it in a way that makes you are familiar with it. That's the thing that other folks tend not to. It is a theory of crime as much as it is like a directed toward police. This is what we mean when we talk about arrest and the connections of between theory, criminal justice theory, criminal law, and the outcome of arrest and the use of arrest to deal with criminal offending purpose. This is a roadmap for criminal justice actors and professionals in the field respond to the phenomenon of crime with it in a way that is most theories don't bias or disclaim purpose. Does that look best? If it is a theory that's related closely to the rest. But then there's also what happens later afterwards. And it's the punishment, the conviction and punishment. Conviction and punishment. Now, the terms and labeling theory, as we talk about, direct us in a kind of useful way to how the justice system should deal with the phenomenon of punishment. Obviously, they anticipate and expect very different things, contradictory things, actually. Deterrence theory says more punishment good, labeling theory says more punishment probably bad, right? So they have contradictory expectations. And what we do in terms of punishment is going to be very, very consequential. And it has the potential to have really serious consequences for the individuals who are punished. And with the rise of mass incarceration in the 1990s, which seems to be at least a part of the explanation of the crime problem, as we talked about, there's all these kinds of concerns as to what the consequences of mass incarceration may be for the culture as a whole. There's a conversation we had about that. It's not for the slide. But then it's also for the individuals who are impacted by these kinds of unintended negative consequences that might occur as a result, specifically felony conviction, and then following a felony conviction, something like a prison experience in particular. Not everyone who is prison, obviously, but then too. It's, I don't know, an off the top number. It varies by place, but it's something like 25%, I would say. Based on my own research, it's something along the lines of 25% of felony convictions end up being incarcerated, which is usually for about 12 months. Okay. So when you get a felony conviction, and then for say 25% of them, a prison experience, what happens to them after their release? Well, one of the unintended negative consequences that may emerge from this, sometimes called a collateral consequence, unintended negative is recidivism. This would be simply reoffending after being punishment. So recidivism, reoffending, is one of the key collateral consequences that we're interested in. We want to know if punishment is going to make recidivism less or more, so I have no control. If it's making things better, low recidivism risk, that system theory says, punishment might improve. If it increases recidivism, that's a problem. Because it means we're arresting, convicting, and incarcerating millions of people nationwide, and it's not making them better, it's making it worse on the average. So labeling people, in general, expects that this is going to make things worse. By virtue of adopting the identity, you come to see yourself in light of the meaning, in light of the meanings and labels that are assigned by the generalized, and interpret, and then sort of directs your own behavior and how you use your human agents, the eyes, right? The eye interacts with the me and making decisions by it, right? As a model. With all of that, right? The research seems to suggest that for a lot of people, the experience of receiving a felony conviction and then going to prison could make things worse rather than better. Make things worse rather than better. This sort of, in general, points us in the direction of labeling theory over strength theory. Generally, although it's not that all prison experiences are negative or all are good. The labeling theory is a very specific method by which this works. It's like through the self. Through the self, comprised of the I and me, you come to view yourself in light of the meaning that everybody is assigning to you. The whole system, the whole structure is assigning this meaning of deviant criminal felon to you, and it's really difficult to reject that. It's really difficult to reject the stigmas. Everyone knows about it. You can't, like, it's like title. You have to deal with it. And it's very difficult to do. That's what labeling theory is about. But what if there's more to it? Only a little bit about like the barriers that are associated with a felony conviction or a criminal conviction. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the question is, how else might punishment increase crime rather than reduce it? And like I said, we know empirically that many studies suggest that it does in fact make crime better. There's much more support, I would say, for labeling theory than there is for experience theory happening in too well. We can talk more about that, but we already kind of did. So what are the mechanisms? What connects the label to the recidivist? Connects the punishment or the prison experience in particular to the recidivism. Reoffending afterwards. What makes things work in that regard rightly? Well, there's several possibilities that connect those two things together. The punishment and the consequence. One of these things is the perceived risk of being caught and punished again. What some studies have shown is that punishment, including having been arrested, having been convicted, having been incarcerated, can affect your perceptions regarding the likelihood of being caught for the same crime or a different time or a similar crime again, but not in ways that you would find unexpected. Research tends to show that if you've been arrested, you tend to think that the likelihood of you being caught and punished is lower. It is less rather than greater or higher, more. You're arrested, let's say for like DUI. You go to prison for DUI, or you go to jail. You go to jail, like county jail for DUI, even for a felony. DUI. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's all hot. It's not criminal. So like you go to jail and or prison for DUI. DUI is like a totally DUI. However, people while they're sober, that's the likelihood of you being caught on again for DUI. They think that it is less rather than they think that it is lower rather than higher, which is weird. This is sometimes described as the gambler's fallacy. The gambler's fallacy, or the gambler's fallacy hypothesis, anticipates that individual offenders will oftentimes view their punishment experiences as basically just the result of bad luck. Bad luck. Caught, but now I'm wiser. Done it before. Now I know what not to do. And so it's associated with an increase in confidence that you'll get away with it. It's called the gambler's fallacy because it's like like the idea is the more you spin the roulette wheel, the more likely it is that you're going to like win. That's not how it works. This is a weird thing about human psychology. You know, human beings are horrendous predicting probabilities. I don't know what it is. Some wiring got screwed up. We're terrible at anticipating probability. Probability that something will happen. The probability that the roulette wheel spin is going to benefit you is exactly the same every single time it's done. It's exactly the same every single time. The same thing and the same process works with punishment. The likelihood of you being caught is probably exactly the same, but it's definitely not lower. If anything, it might even be higher because now they have your license plate and your name and your face. The likelihood that they catch you and punish you is going to probably be the same or even a little bit higher than it was before. But no. If you ask individual people and say that was bad luck, I used up, that was wiser, I know what I wouldn't get caught. Will we want shame on me? Shame on them. We guys have to get away with it. So that's reducing perceived risk. That's one connection between the experience of punishment and the increased likelihood of reinvestment. Who is it that punishment makes things worse? Why is it that punishment makes things worse? One reason is because we go really bad at anticipating and predicting probability. It's like, well, I'm going to get away with it next time. Use up all my bad luck. And that's not really common. So reducing perceived risk is one potential explanation. A second explanation, and sometimes I would say this is called resetting or downward updating. You're downward updating your expectation about the likelihood of being positive. You're resetting via the punishment the likelihood of being punished. And you're resetting it in the wrong direction. Resetting it downward, upward, or resetting downward reduces the likelihood or feel constrained by the likelihood of being punished. So reducing perceived risk. The second potential explanation that connects potentially the experience of being caught and punished and reoffending is the strengthening of criminal attitudes, strengthening of criminal behavior attitudes. If you go to prison, you're typically not going to be like hanging out with people who full law-abiding conventional values. Typically, you're going to be hanging out with people who have the same kind of values that you probably do that led you to go to prison in the first place. Prisons are kind of unique ecological settings in the first place, and because they're kind of isolated, these, in general, and we can call them like attitudes favorable to time, it's kind of a differential association, social learning kind of framework, which is closely related to kind of where we're going. These kinds of attitudes, perspectives, opinions, techniques of neutralization can persist unchecked in the kind of isolated social. Hard work is for suckers. Don't try to get a job after release. Engage in the same kind of behavior that you battled before, especially since you use the all your bad luck. The justice system is unfair. Police are biased. Police are racist. You can have these kinds of perspectives that sort of work their way into the culture of the system. You don't need to delay gratification. You can pursue immediate pleasure. These kinds of sentiments can persist more or less unchecked for sometimes extended periods of time. So that's one issue. You can learn them from others. One of the key mechanisms of learning is because you just have a lot of free time in prison. They try to structure it in well-funded prisons, they try to structure it as much as possible. It's also associated with a lot of idle time. So what do you do in this idle time? You ever talk about it? You learn these values by talking about other people, but you can also learn skills and techniques. So not only are you strengthening your attitudes, but you're also building up an expressive kind of criminal resume. You're developing new skills. You can learn about things like target selection. You can learn about things like what weapons to use. You can learn about things like how to deal with contraband, how to get away with it. Now, these skills not themselves going to be cause of the crime. I just think if you learn a skill doesn't mean you use it. But what it does do is, again, does what Cameron fallacy, it increases confidence. I can get away with this on release because now not only have I used up all of that luck, but beyond that, I now know more. I know more than I knew, and I'm more likely to get away with it after release. That can build a sense of confidence. That sense of confidence, interacting with all these other sources, can make one more likely. So the argument goes more likely to offend on release rather than less. the strengthening of criminal attitudes, criminal skills, and